come up and try to flank him.
Right on.
But there's all kinds of different ways into the space. The design team at Lightbox and I, we like to think about this as a combat sandbox. Now, it's not open world, so you can't just hop in a Hawk and fly straight up through the sky and go into a space mission. It still progresses from environment to environment. But within a given environment, it plays very much like a controlled combat sandbox.
Well, since we're talking about gaming 101, you know, you are in a Starhawk and you're flying towards space. As a designer, or your designers, how do you make it clear that, okay, sure you're in space, but there's a barrier? How do you make that realistic, or is it just something that you are expecting gamers to kind of accept and forgive?
You know, I think there are a lot of things that the players just try to, they just accept because they're convention. So like reticles or health or maps, there's a layer of game that players look through. And map boundaries are needed because we want to keep a specific density of experience. And it's just something that players have come to expect across all shooters.
Which is why a lot of designers go for the linear approach. It's just very point A, point B, point C.
Right. And in this case, instead of you know, a single player game that plays out, you know, line, exchange, what we see Harvard playing here on Echo is more like a region, like we talked about in Austin. You know, Harvard could have, you know, snuck back around that whole canyon and attacked from a different way.
Right.
And then once he captures that rift, he can build all kinds of different structures and solve the combat challenge a ton of different ways.
Right on. So this is still phase one of the mission.
Oh, I got to show that. That is a dedicated melee button. In Warhawk, you had to switch to the knife to do a melee, and that's not the case in Starhawk. Melee's always on R3. And the same is true for flares. And that's, oh my God, he's gonna die. You can see,
is this his first death?
Emmett took a lot of damage, so his rift regulator burst out of his back. He's trying to cool him down to keep him from transforming.
Nice. So talk about, you know, this is a good segue, you know, talk about Warhawk to Starhawk and how the community was involved in a way with the design choices you made for Starhawk.
I will. This is delicious PlayStation water.
Want to just point at the camera and smile?
Is this PlayStation water?
This is official PlayStation water.
Yeah, so, you know, obviously we were running dark for a long time on Starhawk. We couldn't really talk to anyone, coming off camera. And, but we were always watching the forums, right? You know, we derive an enormous amount of pleasure from, you know, GAF and all the other places.
Right on.
And we're always taking notes. And sometimes people on the forums, as the internet is wont to do, post random things like, you know, I want to, you know, bunnies should be unlockable. Bunnies should not be unlockable. But there's all kinds of other things that are like, wow, that, you know what? That is absolutely right. And so we were always watching and looking at what people needed. Like the fact that people didn't like to have to switch to the knife to use it. The fact that people didn't like having to switch to flares to use flares. We put flares dedicated on R3 now for scrubbing missiles. Community support, all that stuff. We can talk a little bit more about that later. Cool. I want to get back to what Harvard's doing right here.
Go for it.
He killed the warband. And so now, as part of the mission, he's got to build an extractor on this rift to claim it. And again, Emmett and Cutter are rift salvagers, so this is a big part of their mission. He presses triangle, he selects a part, and then he builds it right there with the X button. Very, very simple. And in this case, that part can only be built on a rift, so it auto snaps there. And you can see all in real time the new structure builds.
How challenging is that for that to happen all in real time?
Well, I can't swear on live TV, but it's bleeping complicated.
Wow.
Getting the AI to understand all of that is incredibly complicated.
Which is half of your design time right there.
Oh my God.
Building it and engineering
it's huge, because unlike an RTS where the AI just needs to know how to walk around, in our game, it's a bunker with ladders and windows and doors that open depending on the team, and you can go inside and they have pickups, and the AI have to be wicked as smart.
Right on.
And in this case, the AI are counterattacking, right? Because Harvard just grabbed that rift. So they're drop podding in on this comm relay, and Cutter had his little talking head, he told us. And in the status doc, it tells us the next objective. And just like you might see in, God, I love Pixel Junk Monsters. You know how at the bottom it tells you all the things that are going to happen? Gratuitous plug. Dylan Cuthbert should send me a check. Just like that, Harvard will always see the status of things he's got to do.